Welcome back to Takeout. The Senate did something today it rarely does. Passed a big, complicated bill on a bipartisan basis about an issue that millions of Americans care about, the issue housing costs. Earlier today, I spoke with Massachusetts Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren about that bill and a lot else. Federal housing legislation is pretty rare. The last big bill passed in 1990. Senator Warren, what does this have in it to address real-time problems Americans have either with their rent or with their housing affordability?
Well, look, the big problem is we just don't have enough housing in America, and we need more housing of every kind. Housing for first-time home buyers, housing for renters, housing for seniors, for people with disabilities, for people who have no housing, for people growing their families, rural, urban. And what this bill is about is more. Every provision in this bill, and there are more than 40 of them, push in exactly the same direction, and that is different ways to help bring down the cost of building more housing and to urge communities to get more housing done. So ultimately, with this bill, good first step, we're going to bring down the cost of housing by just having more of it.
It passed the Senate today 89-10. That means it's by definition bipartisan. I also know enough about legislation, Senator, to know that when it's bipartisan, there are things you love and there are things you had to swallow. What do you love and what did you have to swallow that you would have preferred not to?
You know, what I love about this bill is that it's very positive. It's got a lot of creative ideas. Lisa Blunt Rochester got a piece in here that said, how about if we have something available in the way of plan books so that cities can say in advance that if you'll follow the basic structural plans here, you don't have to spend any time waiting for your permits. Your permits will be automatic, and that helps bring down cost. It's got a provision in it that says we're going to cut the red tape around environmental approvals when you're doing infill housing. I mean, you know, housing between two other pieces of housing. And one of the parts that we've never seen before, we're saying in this bill, private equity, you got to stay out of the single family housing market. Right now, we're watching people who try to buy their first home. They put everything together, and then in swoops an investor from Wall Street, makes an all-cash offer, and ends up buying the house. And what this bill says is we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to put some real curbs because we believe that housing should be for families, not for corporations. A lot to love here.
What is the White House disposition about this bill? I keep reading different things. The president likes that provision you just mentioned about private equity, but there's also reporting I've seen this week that the White House no longer considers it a priority.
Well, all I can say is we've worked very closely with the White House. They have signed off on the bill as written and put out a written statement of enthusiastic support for this bill. So this really is a case. Democrats are on it, Republicans are on it, and the White House is on it. We ought to get this bill done.
Let me ask you about the Iran war. What is your attitude about how it's going, and what are your near-term fears?
Well, my biggest fear here is that the administration still can't explain what we're doing over there, what our goals are, what constitutes success. All they seem to be able to manage to do is spend a lot of money. So in a world where we just read that 80 million families are struggling to pay for their health care in light of the cuts that the Trump administration has put in place, and Donald Trump and the Republicans say, hey, there's just no money to help them out. But they can spend $1 billion a day bombing Iran for no reason that they can explain. You know, look, Donald Trump ran for office saying he would lower costs on day one, sure hasn't done that. And he also said that he would be a president not to start wars, but to make peace, and that that's what constituted America first. Spending billions of dollars bombing Iran is not making us safer, and it means we're spending money over there we ought to be spending at home.
Let me paraphrase something that John Fetterman, Democrat from Pennsylvania, said on my program last night, which is, why can't Democrats celebrate the death of Ayatollah Khamenei and the regime in Iran that has got blood on its hands for 47 years of Americans?
I think we have. I mean, I didn't see anybody who was sympathetic about losing that man. And I think that the world is a better place without him. The question is what comes next and at what price? Because right now it appears that a hardliner has been replaced by the hardliner's son and is known to be even more hardline, only now he comes with the grudges of knowing that the United States of America killed his father and killed his wife. What are we trying to accomplish and how are we going to do it? And all I gotta say is, you know, if they had one answer, two answers, okay, we could work with that. But the Trump administration gives a different answer every hour, and that means they have no answer at all.
Senator, let me ask you about something near and dear to your heart, Consumer Financial Protection Board. Yeah. There's going to be on our program later this week someone who's written for ProPublica about problems now because the Trump administration has dramatically reduced the people who work at the CFPB and its willingness to engage in direct consumer complaints about credit reports. Americans have errors on their credit reports. They're asking for the credit rating agencies to fix them. The CFPB used to be something they could turn to help them, and it appears that that's not happening anymore.
Yeah. Understand this. The CFPB has been the cop on the beat. And they've been there if there's a mistake on your credit report and the credit agency won't fix it. They're there when you get cheated on your credit cards. They're there to make sure you don't get cheated on your mortgage. They're there when you have a problem. And what Donald Trump and Mr. Vogt have done is they've just sidelined the cop. And guess what happens when you sideline the cop? The bad guys start acting like bad guys again. And in this case, one of the whole reasons for having the CFPB move into this area was because the credit reporting agencies, even though the law requires them to correct errors, just basically were telling consumers, go jump in the lake. They just wouldn't make the corrections. So the CFPB, cop on the beat, showed some real muscle, and by golly, it helped a lot of people. And now, with that cop sidelined, it means those folks don't get help. And understand, like I said, it's happening in area after area after area. Understand, CFPB, before it got sidelined, was returning more than $1 billion a year to families who got cheated. And now, under the Trump administration, they're just not there to be in the fight. But the cheating still goes on, and families are the ones who lose.
Elizabeth Warren, Democratic Senator from Massachusetts. Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.